Welcome to the fifth edition of the 2012 State Bar of Georgia Legislative Update. I'm Ken Shigley, President of the State Bar. Today's February 10th, 2012. With me is Tom Bowler, who has been a legislative representative of the bar for a good long while. The legislature is getting busy and moving along with their work. Some things of interest to bar members we'll touch upon. One is Senate Bill 365, which is not a state bar bill, and we've not taken a position on it at this point in time. However, it is of great interest to lawyers who handle real estate transactions. This was introduced by Senator Hamrick of Carrollton at the suggestion of the Georgia real estate closing attorneys, or at least some of them. This bill would require that collected funds in real estate closings be deposited in a Georgia attorney's IOLTA account, and that a Georgia attorney witness certain waivers of rights and acknowledgments of rights by borrowers in real estate closings. We haven't seen the final form of it yet, but I think if it passes, it will address some of the current concerns that Georgia real estate lawyers have had about witness-only closings and about closings being done without an attorney involvement. The indigent defense legislation and proposed constitutional amendment are rolling forward. We are very much in support of that. Again, we may not have seen the final form of it yet, but it's moving forward in the House. I mentioned a couple of weeks ago that the Uniform Interstate Discovery and Depositions Act had passed. It's been signed by the governor. This will enable Georgia lawyers to get subpoenas for depositions and document productions and inspection of premises in other states in support of litigation in Georgia if the other state has adopted the same law. Last week I was not here on the video update. I was down in New Orleans at the National Conference of Bar Presidents. I called this to the attention of all the Southern Conference of Bar Presidents on Thursday, and we'll be sending out a letter to the bar presidents in all the states in the country that have not yet adopted this statute so that we can get the benefit of it in Georgia and all the other states. That's a long process, but we hope to push it along. A couple of the major items on the legislative agenda this year, they're very complicated, don't show a lot of movement in public, but there's a lot of work going on behind the scenes on criminal justice reform and on the proposed juvenile code, trying to work out the necessary compromises to be able to move forward on adopting that legislation. Tom, what's going on the other things?
Well, let me talk a little bit about what happened last week. In addition to what was going on with legislation that may affect lawyers, there was one major issue affecting all the people of this state. The issue was charter schools. If you recall, the Supreme Court struck down the authority of the state government to approve charter schools, so the proponents, or those who are interested in charter schools, have proposed a constitutional amendment to give that authority to the state so that the state can have an approval process. That constitutional amendment needed 120 votes. They got 110 votes, so it was defeated. The next morning, I believe it was Wednesday morning, or Thursday morning, it was reconsidered, and so the issue of charter schools is back on the table. There won't be a vote for it, but it can be for a while, but it can be pulled off the table, and hopefully they'll figure out a way to get the 120 votes to move it on to the Senate. But that is a major issue at the legislature. Education always is a major issue, and charter schools have become very important in that process. From a bar standpoint, the garnishment bill that allows non-lawyers to make the initial response to a garnishment filing was signed by the governor last week, so it is current law. Our international commercial arbitration legislation, which I think is a really fine bill that modernizes and updates our commercial arbitration process or international commercial arbitration process in this state came out of committee last week with support from the Metro Chamber of Commerce, the Atlanta Chamber of Commerce, and the State Chamber of Commerce. So this has wide business support. I think it's going to be good for Georgia's position and Atlanta's position in the global economy, and I think that's kind of one of the good sleeper bills of this legislative session. And it will be, hopefully it will be on the floor next week or the first part of the following week. There's a slight cleanup bill. It's a House Bill 899. Last year, the legislature changed the election of nonpartisan candidates, including judges, from the general election in November to the primary election. Historically, we've had judicial elections in primaries, and it was only changed not that many years ago to the general election because there are so many runoffs in judicial elections. It cost a lot of money to continue to operate those runoffs after a general election. It also pushed the date of election of judges into December sometimes. So the legislature last year pushed those judicial elections back to the primary. The legislation or the language in the law that did that is in two different places in the code. And last year we only changed one of those code provisions. And so this year the legislature came back and has this little cleanup bill to assure that judicial elections will be in the primaries this year. One final bill, a bill of the bars from last year, the prohibition of transfer fee covenants on real estate closings and documents. That has been it's almost been a snake bit bill. Every time we get it moving, there's another special interest that wants to make a slight change, or an organization that comes in and wants to add an amendment here or an amendment there. We are on the brink of getting that thing passed, and I think I want to thank Representative Doug McKillop from Athens, who is the author of that bill and has worked with us to keep that bill clean, and he has shown tremendous patience in working with all these other interests that have come forward to try to get onto that bill. We have finished 18 legislative days as of Thursday, the 9th. The legislature will take a recess until next Wednesday. It appears that the schedule is going to go fairly smoothly and quickly, and we're still looking at an adjournment of somewhere around the 1st of April. There's only one hitch, and that may be a budget problem that would cause a longer session than April 1st. Revenues, the rumors are that January revenues are down, which may affect the 2012 and 2013 budgets. But hopefully that will not happen, and we look for an adjournment in late March, early April.
Finally, if you're a Georgia lawyer watching this, you're probably interested in legislation and the political process. And what I see over at the Capitol is we have some very good, hardworking lawyer legislators who are really trying hard to do a great job for their constituents and for the law. But there are not enough of them. If you're going to really parse words in legislation and avoid unintended consequences, it takes a lot of hard work by people who know how to do this. And lawyers are trained to deal with words and statutes and to try to avoid those unintended consequences. If you're living in a district where there may be an open seat in the next election, I would encourage you to think very hard about taking your shot. You miss 100% of the shots you don't take. And if you are interested in pursuing elective office in the legislature and there's an opening in your district, I encourage you to go ahead and do it. We'll talk with you again next week. Thanks.